I never thought the moment that destroyed my life would be that quiet. The city outside the glass windows was still glowing like every other night. Traffic flowed along the avenue, red and white lights reflecting across the ceiling of the apartment I once believed would be the beginning of my future. I had stood in the lobby for nearly 10 minutes just to steady myself, reminding myself that tonight, everything would change. In my coat pocket was the ring I had hidden for 3 weeks. I had planned the dinner, the music she loved, the way I would kneel. I, Roman Blake, the idiot who believed if he was sincere enough, life would return the same. Ethan was the first person who knew I was going to propose. I still remembered him slapping my shoulder, laughing, saying I had finally grown up. He had been my best friend since our part-time job days, the man I trusted enough to give a spare key. And Olivia. She was the reason I wanted to become better, richer, stronger. Whenever I saw her smile, I thought everything I did was worth it. I opened the door with my own key. I wanted it to be a surprise. Then I heard laughter. Not the kind from watching a movie or talking on the phone. It was soft, close, intimate. I stopped, my heart pounding harder, but my mind still tried to build a reasonable explanation. Maybe Ethan came by. Maybe they were preparing something for me. Maybe... I took a few more steps, looked down the hallway, and every maybe in my life died right there. Olivia was kissing Ethan. Not a brush of lips, not a mistake, not drunkenness. It was the kiss of two people who had done this long enough to stop being afraid. His hand rested on her back, familiar, as if it had always belonged there. And she pulled him closer, as if I had never existed. I stood a few meters away. The world kept moving. The air conditioner hummed. The city kept shining. Only I stopped. I heard them say words she once said to me. The way she laughed. The way she whispered. Everything was the same, except the man in front of her. My hand suddenly went numb. The ring box slipped from my fingers, hit the wooden floor with a small sound, sharp as a blade. They broke apart. The moment Olivia's eyes met mine, I saw everything. Panic, fear, calculation. Ethan froze like a child caught doing something wrong. No one spoke. No one ran to me. No apology leapt out like in the movies. I realized the most painful thing was not that they betrayed me. It was that they were not prepared to lose me. If they truly loved each other, they should have known this day would come. They should have been ready to pay the price. But in their eyes, I was just an accident. Olivia opened her mouth, probably to say my name. I didn't give her the chance. I turned around. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I didn't hit anyone. Because somehow, I understood this pain was too big for small actions like that. I walked out of the apartment, each step heavy as if dragging an entire lifetime behind me. The elevator doors closed, and the last image I saw was the two of them standing in the living room, like people who had dropped something but didn't yet realize how valuable it was. In my palm, there was only the imprint where the ring box had been. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to lose everything. The next morning, I woke up in my car. Windshield. Watched sunlight slide across windshield. Watched sunlight slide across the familiar skyscrapers, people rushing to work like any other day. The world functioned normally, cold and precise, as if last night had never happened. Then the memories came back. The ring. The kiss. The look in their eyes when they saw me. My chest tightened as if someone squeezed it from the inside. I gripped the steering wheel, breathing slowly, trying not to fall apart in the middle of a crowded parking lot. I used to think betrayal would look like a movie. Loud, dramatic, full of screaming. But it was quiet, neat, and cruel enough to feel almost polite. My phone lay on the passenger seat. The screen lit up. 12 missed calls. 8 messages. Ethan's name and Olivia's took turns appearing like some sick joke. I stared at them for a long time. My fingers weren't even shaking anymore. Something inside me had crossed the border of pain and stepped into another place, where everything became numb. Olivia said she could explain. Ethan said it was a mistake. They both said they needed to talk. but I had seen enough. There are things that once you see them, you can never return to the time you didn't know. No conversation could erase last night. No apology could turn me back into the man holding a ring box at the door. I put the phone down, started the engine, and drove toward the office. The building rose in front of me, tall and bright, with the company logo where the three of us had begun. I had walked in there thousands of times. I knew every security guard, every coffee shop on the corner, every elevator that always stuck. In that place, I once believed I had a future. I parked but didn't step out. I asked myself, could I walk in today as if nothing had happened? Could I shake Ethan's hand in front of everyone, watch Olivia pass in the hallway, pretend my heart wasn't torn open? The answer came fast and clear. No. I wasn't that noble. And I wasn't insane. I opened my email. The cursor blinked on the blank screen, waiting. I had never quit anything in my life. I was always the last one to leave, the fixer, the one who carried the hardest part. But today, somewhere deep inside, I understood. If I stayed, I would die slowly. Not physically, but in my self-respect. I started typing. Short, polite, professional. I thanked the company for the opportunity, said I had decided to pursue another direction. I didn't mention Ethan. I didn't mention Olivia. I didn't mention that my entire world had just collapsed. I pressed send. Just like that, a chapter of my life ended with a tap on the screen. My phone vibrated again. This time it was a new social media photo. Our mutual friends had posted it. I didn't know how long they had known, but clearly long enough. Ethan and Olivia stood next to each other in a bar I had taken her to last year for her birthday. She wore the dress I bought. His hand rested on her waist, smiling like a winner. The picture had hundreds of likes. I looked at it and felt nothing. No anger. No tears. Not even sadness. Only a massive emptiness opening inside me, swallowing everything that had been Roman Blake yesterday. I suddenly understood a simple and cruel truth. They weren't afraid of losing me, because in their world, I was already gone. A car behind me honked. I realized I was still sitting there. I shifted gears, drove out of the parking lot, didn't walk into the office one last time, didn't say goodbye to anyone. The city moved behind me while I went forward without knowing where I was going. But there was one thing I knew very clearly. The man stepping away from this car would never be the same man who walked into that apartment last night. People like to say time heals. They lie. Time doesn't make the pain smaller. It only makes you used to carrying it, like a scar in a place you can't stop touching. 2 years had passed since that night, yet some mornings I still woke up feeling the ring box slipping from my hand, the dry sound replaying in my head like a recording that would never shut off. But one thing had changed. I no longer collapsed. I moved to a smaller apartment, far from the old neighborhood, where there were no bars, no restaurants, no streets reminding me of Olivia. I sold my old car, bought a cheaper one, and poured every dollar of my savings into the only thing that still made me feel like I could breathe. Work. I started over. The first days were brutal. No one cares that you were betrayed. No one pays for your pain. The world rewards results. I worked like a man possessed. I slept on the couch of a shared office. I learned everything I lacked. I met clients, got rejected, went back again and again, until they were too tired to keep pushing me away. I stopped trying to prove I was a good man. I wanted to prove I was irreplaceable. Every time I wanted to quit, I saw them in my head. Ethan with his victorious smile. Olivia in the dress I bought. The image didn't break me anymore. It burned me. It kept me awake. It reminded me that if I weakened, they would continue living happily without ever paying a price. And I couldn't accept that. The company began to grow slowly, like a stubborn child refusing to die. One small contract led to a bigger one. One satisfied client brought 3 more. I hired my first employee, then the second. I learned how to lead, how to negotiate, how to read the smallest lines in a contract. I built a reputation on something simple. If Roman Blake promised, Roman Blake delivered. 2 years. Long enough for others to believe the past had gone to sleep. But no, it was only waiting. That morning I walked into my new office. High floor, wide glass, the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of a company running efficiently. Margaret, my CFO, was waiting with a file in her hands. She was one of the first people who believed in me when I was nothing, and because of that, I always listened to her. "We have an acquisition opportunity," she said. I took the folder, flipping through the pages, my brain automatically switching into analysis mode. Revenue down, debt up, weak management. A sinking company, but still holding valuable assets in the right hands. The company name was on the first page. My heart skipped. I read it again, making sure I wasn't mistaken. It was the company I used to work for, the place I had sent my resignation email on the worst morning of my life, the place where Ethan was CEO. The room suddenly went silent, even though people were still talking around me. I could hear my blood in my ears, not because of pain, but because of opportunity. Life has a strange sense of humor. It doesn't hit you when you're ready. It waits until you're strong enough to understand what is happening. I looked up at Margaret. "Is it possible?" I asked. She nodded. "If we move fast, we can control the majority of shares within a few weeks." A few weeks. 2 years ago, I walked away from that place like a loser who couldn't speak. Today, I could return as the buyer. I closed the file. In my mind, it was no longer Ethan kissing Olivia. I saw him sitting across from me at a conference table, waiting for my decision. "Start," I said. And for the first time since the night the ring hit the floor, I smiled. I was in the middle of a meeting when her name appeared on the screen. Olivia Carter. For 2 years, I hadn't heard her voice, hadn't seen her, hadn't even allowed myself to walk past anywhere that might bring me face to face with her again. I had built an entirely new life on one simple rule. If I didn't see the past, it would have no right to touch me. And yet now, with just a few letters lighting up on my phone, everything I had locked away began to shake. I flipped the screen face down. Margaret continued presenting the acquisition strategy, numbers, charts, growth forecasts. These had become the only world I allowed myself to exist in. I focused, asked questions, nodded at the right moments. If anyone looked at me, they would see a CEO calm and fully in control of the room. But inside my head, a door had opened. My phone vibrated again, then again. Finally, I excused myself and stepped into the glass hallway, where the noise of the office was swallowed by the vast emptiness below. I looked down at the city, took a deep breath, and only then unlocked the screen. First message: I need to talk to you. Second: please. The third came right after: I have no one else. I read the last line over and over. No one else. It's strange how people only remember you when every other door has closed. My finger hovered over the screen. Part of me wanted to delete it, throw the phone away, go back into the meeting and continue the perfect life I had worked so hard to build. The other part, the one that once loved her, wanted to know what had happened. I hated that I still had that part. I called her. "One ring," she answered. "Roman?" Her voice broke, small and trembling, nothing like the confidence I remembered. I didn't respond immediately. I wanted to hear her breathing, wanted to make sure this was real. "I'm here," I finally said. There was silence for a few seconds. Then she started crying. Not the kind meant to manipulate, but the sound of someone who had reached the end of the road and found nothing there. "Why now?" I asked. I didn't need many words. I only needed the truth. She said Ethan had changed, that he was rarely home, that there were messages she wasn't allowed to see, that eventually she had seen him with another woman. History repeated itself. Only this time, she stood where I once stood. I wondered whether that was justice, or just math. "I thought about you every day," she said. "I know I don't have the right, but I miss you." I leaned my back against the glass. The city behind me felt cold and distant, like a photograph. 2 years ago, hearing that would have been enough for me to run to her. I would have believed every word, held her, been ready to rebuild from nothing. But that man was dead. I remembered burying him somewhere between sleepless nights, between contracts, between ambition and self-respect. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I chose the wrong man." I closed my eyes. Not because it hurt, but because I realized it didn't anymore. There's a vast distance between loving someone and going back to them. And in the past 2 years, I had traveled farther than she could imagine. "Roman, can we try again?" she asked. The question hung between us like an old rope, rotten, trying to connect two cliffs that had already collapsed. I thought about Ethan, about the acquisition file lying on the meeting table, about how in just a few weeks my signature could decide his future. Life really does have a sense of arrangement. I opened my eyes. "Olivia," I said, my voice so calm it surprised even me. "I'm buying his company." On the other end of the line, she stopped breathing. And I knew, for the first time, she was beginning to understand who I had become. The day I saw Ethan again, the sky was cruelly clear. No rain, no storm, no sign of a disaster about to happen. Sunlight reflected off the glass facade of the building where his company was headquartered, making it look like a perfect version of stability. If someone walked by, they would think this was just an ordinary workday. But I knew the truth. I stepped out of the car, adjusted my cuff, and looked up at the familiar logo I had passed every day for nearly 4 years. There was a time I dreamed of becoming a leader in this place. I thought Ethan and I would build it together, expand it, grow old with it. Life loves to mock innocent dreams. Now I was back, not to work. I came to buy. Margaret walked beside me, her heels striking the stone in steady rhythm. The legal team had gone in ahead, preparing the conference room, preparing the documents, preparing everything necessary for a transfer of power. I didn't need to look at them to know they were in position. I would be the last one to enter. The door opened. Ethan was already there. For a brief moment, time did something strange. It overlaid the image from 2 years ago onto the man sitting in front of me. I saw him younger, confident, slapping my shoulder, calling me brother. Then the image vanished, replaced by reality. He looked tired. Dark circles under his eyes. His suit no longer fit the way it used to. On the table were stacks of reports, like evidence of how quickly he had lost control. When he saw me, he stood up. "Roman," he said. My name sounded foreign coming from his mouth, as if it hadn't been used in a long time. I shook his hand. Polite. Enough. Nothing more. "Ethan." We sat on opposite sides of the long table. Lawyers, advisors, board members, they were all there, but they blurred away. The room narrowed until it held only me and the man who once took everything from me. Or thought he had. He began speaking first, about market difficulties, about wrong decisions, about pressure. I listened, nodding when necessary, but the words passed through me like wind against glass. They no longer had the power to move me. I studied him. There was something I hadn't seen 2 years ago. Fear. He wasn't afraid of losing the company. He was afraid of losing his position in my eyes. "We know the situation isn't good," he said, his voice finally lowering. "But with the right resources, we can turn it around." "We." I almost smiled. 2 years ago, he also said "we" while kissing my woman. Margaret signaled for the lawyers to begin. The file was slid toward Ethan, thick, clean pages holding his future, his employee's future, everything he had tried to keep. He looked down and read. I watched the color leave his face bit by bit. The terms were very clear. We buy the majority of shares. We control the board. We decide the executive leadership. Simply put, I decide. He looked up at me, trying to remain calm. "Roman, can we talk privately?" The room went silent. All eyes turned to me. 2 years ago, I might have agreed immediately. I was always the one who gave him chances. But today, I understood real power was not in a private conversation. It was in not needing one. "Anything you want to say," I replied evenly, "you can say here." He swallowed. In that moment, I saw it clearly. He knew where he was. He knew the man sitting across from him was no longer the Roman from the past. He looked down at the contract again. His hand rested on the pen, and I waited. There are moments in life when the loudest sound is silence. The pen rested between Ethan's fingers, hovering above the last page of the agreement. I could hear the air conditioner, the faint shift of chairs, someone clearing their throat at the far end of the table. But all of it felt distant. The only thing that truly existed was the distance between the tip of the pen and the signature line. 2 years. I had gone from a man frozen in the hallway of his own apartment to the man sitting here, where a small movement of someone else's hand could change his entire life. If justice existed, maybe it looked like this. Ethan read it again, as if the words might change themselves if he were desperate enough. I saw the frantic calculation in his eyes. An exit, a miracle, some intervention that would save him from bowing to me. But there were no miracles. Only the market. Only the numbers. And me. Roman, he said, his voice rough. If I sign this, I lose control. No one else spoke. They were waiting for my reaction, as if I were the weather, and they had to learn how to survive it. Yes, I replied. No explanation. No softening. The truth was heavy enough. He exhaled, looking down at his hand. I remembered that hand on my shoulder, pulling me into late nights, raised in promises that he would always stand by me. Promises become fragile when stock value begins to fall. Can I stay? He asked. In another role. I can help. I understand this company. I tilted my head, considering the question, though inside I had known the answer long before I entered this room. He was bargaining with familiarity, with history, with the years we had shared. But he forgot one thing. I understood this company too. And I understood him. We will reassess the structure after the transition, I said. A perfect answer for the press. Cold, logical, revealing nothing. But Ethan was smart enough to hear the rest. No. He nodded slowly. In that moment, I saw him release a world he once believed was his. No anger, no pride, only the exhaustion of a man who had lost and knew it. I wondered if I had looked like that on the morning I sent my resignation email. Probably worse. He picked up the pen. Time stretched, thin as a thread. I didn't rush him. I didn't look away. I wanted him to understand I could sit here forever. I had waited 2 years for this moment. A few more minutes meant nothing. Finally, the pen touched paper. One stroke, then another. His name appeared at the bottom of the page, confirming what the whole room already knew. Power had changed hands. My lawyer collected the contract. Handshakes followed. A few people sighed in relief. The process continued, as if this were just another transaction. But for me, it was a door closing. Ethan set the pen down and looked at me. No challenge left. Only a question he didn't dare to say. Why you? I could have answered him. Because you taught me how to lose everything. And I learned very fast. But I didn't. I simply stood, buttoning my jacket. From this moment, I said, my voice clear, loud enough for everyone to hear. We begin again. Not him. U.S. And this time, I write the rules. After everyone left the conference room, I asked Ethan to stay. The door closed behind the lawyers and advisors, leaving the space large but strangely empty. Less than an hour ago, this had been a battlefield of numbers and signatures. Now it was just the two of us, and the parts of the past that had never been spoken. Ethan remained seated, hands clasped together, eyes on the table. I wondered what he was searching for in the wood grain. An exit? Or another version of life where I wasn't the one standing here with absolute power? I didn't sit. I wanted him to look up. I guess this part isn't in the contract, he said, trying to smile, but the smile fell halfway. No, I replied. This part is personal. He nodded, as if he had been expecting that from the moment he signed. I walked to the head of the table and placed a thin folder in front of him. Not thick like the acquisition documents, just a few pages. But sometimes the lightest things can break a man. This is the decision regarding executive leadership, I said. He didn't open it immediately. He knew what was inside. I could see it in the way his shoulders tightened. Roman, he began, finally looking at me. I know I don't have the right to ask for anything, but I've given years to this place. I can help you with the transition. At least give me some time. His voice was no longer the voice of a winner. It was the voice of someone trying to hold on to the last piece of dignity. I looked at him for a long time. 2 years ago, I had begged for a chance to explain that I never received. I had stood there, silent, watching the two of them decide to change my life without giving me a say. Now the positions were reversed. And the strangest thing was, I didn't feel happy. I only felt certain. You're very good, I said. You always know how to find advantage for yourself. He didn't deny it. But the problem is, I continued, I can't build this company's future on someone who destroyed trust. I didn't need to say more. We both knew what I meant. The room felt smaller. He opened the folder. I watched his eyes move through the lines. Termination effective immediately. Standard severance. Confidentiality clauses. Everything perfect. Not a single gap to argue. He gave a soft laugh, almost a breath. I guess I deserve it, he said. I didn't answer. Because that sentence wasn't for me. It was for himself. He signed. No shaking, no delay. Faster than when he sold the company. Maybe when you've already lost everything, letting go of the rest becomes easy. He set the pen down. And Olivia? He asked suddenly. I looked at him. I heard she called you. News always travels fast in places like this. I adjusted my cuff. That's not business, I said. He nodded. A final acceptance that he no longer had the right to enter any part of my life. He stood. This time I offered my hand first. He took it. Not between friends. Between two men who once knew each other very well and now didn't anymore. Goodbye, Roman, he said. Goodbye, Ethan. He walked out. The door closed. I stood alone in the quiet room, looked at the chair he had occupied, and realized a simple truth. Revenge doesn't bring back the past. It only confirms that you survived. I picked up the folder and prepared for the next person waiting downstairs. She was waiting for me in the lobby. Through the wide glass walls of the building, I saw Olivia standing near the revolving door, her hands gripping her bag strap as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. People walked past, security spoke to visitors, phones rang, everything kept moving. But around her was a separate silence, as if the world had stepped back to make room for this moment. I had imagined our reunion hundreds of times. In some versions, I still loved her so much I couldn't breathe. In others, I walked past without looking. But when the elevator doors opened and I actually saw her, I realized imagination is always simpler than reality. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not in body, but the confidence that once surrounded her like light was gone. When she saw me, her eyes turned red, and for a moment, I saw the woman I once wanted to spend my life protecting. My heart reacted before my mind could interfere. It hurt. But not the kind of hurt that makes you go back. I walked toward her. "Hi," she said, her voice so soft I almost didn't hear it. "Hi," I answered. We stood there, only a few steps apart. But 2 years had built an ocean between us. I could feel her searching my face for something. A sign. An open door. I wasn't sure what she found. "I know you're busy today," she said quickly, as if slowing down would make her lose courage. "I just need a few minutes." I nodded. She told me she had left Ethan, that she couldn't live with suspicion, with the feeling of being replaced. She said she understood what I had gone through, that every night she thought about me, about how she had thrown away a man who would never have hurt her. I listened. I didn't interrupt. Not because I still hoped, but because I respected my own past. The man who loved her deserved to be heard. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. "I just want to know if there is any chance left." That was the real question. Not about Ethan, not about mistakes. It was about me. I looked at her for a long time. I remembered the old apartment, the ring on the floor, the morning in the car, the nights working until collapse. I remembered the man who had died so I could stand here today. If I went back, all of that would become meaningless. Olivia, I said gently, and saw tears spill from her eyes immediately. I loved you with everything I had. She nodded, her lips trembling. But that man isn't here anymore. I didn't say it to hurt her. I said it because it was the only truth that could save both of us from another tragedy. She covered her mouth, trying not to cry out loud. I knew she understood. Some doors, once closed, you can knock, you can beg, but you cannot force them open. I hope you'll be okay, I continued. I really do. She asked me one last thing. Do you ever think about me? I smiled, sad but peaceful. Yes, I said, but not in the way you want anymore. That was the gentlest thing I could give her. I stepped back, not out of fear, but because I had learned not to stand where I could be pulled back into the past. The driver had opened the car door. I looked at her one last time, memorizing the image not to hurt, but to remind myself how far I had come. Goodbye, Olivia. Goodbye, Roman. The door closed. The car began to move. Through the glass, I saw her grow smaller, then dissolve into the crowd behind. I didn't turn back, because this time, I wasn't the one left behind.